Your greatest gift is ruining your life. You're not stuck because you're lost. You're stuck because you can see too much. That's the curse of potential. Too many doors, all slightly open, each one whispering a different version of who you could be, and you can hear all of them. That's why you never walk through any. You weren't taught how to choose. You were taught how to be excellent, how to keep your options open, how to be more. Always more. Until more became your prison, and now you live in the hallway between lives, surrounded by the things you might have done, the people you might have been, the dreams you carefully haven't outgrown. This isn't about laziness. This is about grief. Grief for the life you can't have because you won't choose the one that could be yours. There's a story about a man who built a room of mirrors, not to admire himself, but to see every version of who he might become. A dancer, a healer, a father, a scholar, an adventurer. Each reflection was flawless. Each one smiled back, waiting to be chosen. But the man never picked. He just stayed in the center of the room, fascinated, overwhelmed, paralyzed, until the mirrors began to crack from time, and still he stood there. Because to walk toward one meant turning his back on the rest, and that felt like death. But it wasn't death. It was birth, the death of illusion, the birth of self. And maybe you're him, maybe you're still in that room, calling it ambition, calling it preparation, but secretly fearing that if you walk forward, you'll be less than what you imagined, because imagination has no limits. But life does. And you're not chasing a dream anymore. You're running from the cost of becoming real. Real means choosing, and choosing means closing. And closing means loss. But here's what no one tells you. Not choosing is also a choice. And its loss is slower, but deeper. There's a 57-year-old man who wrote, "I think I waited my whole life to begin. And now I'm not sure there's time left." That's not regret. That's the voice of someone who stood in the mirror room too long and forgot which reflection was real. You don't need another plan, another idea, another sign. You need to break the mirror. Let the versions of you you'll never be fall away, not in anger, in reverence, because they led you here to the edge of a life that can finally begin. The dream hasn't outrun you. It's been waiting for you to stop running from it. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet panic. That sickening sense that every second you wait another future slips out of reach. But you don't move because you're afraid of picking wrong, of wasting time, of becoming someone less than what you could have been. So you stay in the middle, eyes darting between lives that never start, telling yourself it's safer to wait. It's not. Waiting is a decision, and time doesn't refund the cost. There's a young man who wrote, "I wasted 5 years chasing a dream I never really wanted, and now I feel like I'm made of nothing." That isn't failure, that's freedom turned toxic. You think the opposite of movement is stillness. It's not, it's spinning. You're not still, you're stuck in a whirlpool of options. And it's tearing you apart piece by piece while telling you you're doing the smart thing. Kierkegaard called it the dizziness of freedom, a kind of internal vertigo that happens when possibility exceeds your ability to choose. It doesn't feel like liberty, it feels like drowning. Buridan's donkey stood between food and water, so perfectly balanced in his indecision that he starved. He didn't die from scarcity, he died from abundance. And so do we. We die a little every time we postpone becoming, because you can't live every life, you get one. And you can either start it or keep planning a better one. Potential isn't the problem, it's the weight of it, the pressure to get it right, and the shame when you don't. But no life is right. No dream is fully ready. You make them real by choosing them, not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. You think there's an ideal version of you somewhere. On the other side of certainty, there's not. There's only the version you choose to feed. The rest will become ghosts. And if you're not careful, they'll bury you before you ever start. Because the fear you're carrying, the fear of narrowing down, is the same fear that's been narrowing your life all along. This is the price of infinite potential. If you never choose, you'll never fail, but you'll also never live. There's a grief that lives in silence, not for the people you've lost, but for the person you never let yourself become. You don't notice it at first. It doesn't arrive with drama. It creeps in slowly, in sighs, in Sunday nights, in birthdays that don't feel like celebrations anymore. You think you're fine, but you're haunted. Not by failure, by potential, all the selves you abandoned along the way, not because they were wrong, but because choosing them meant unchoosing everything else. So you waited. And now the versions of you that never lived watch you from the corners of your life, not to punish you, but to remind you that they were real, they were possible. And you said no. There's a woman who wrote, I've been good at everything I've ever tried, but I've never finished anything, and now I feel like my whole life is an introduction. She isn't mourning lost time, she's mourning the shape of an unlived story, the tension that builds but never breaks, the chapter that never turns. Kafka told the story of a man who stood before a gate built just for him. He waited for permission to enter, for a sign, for clarity. He waited his whole life. And when he finally asked the gatekeeper why no one else had come, the answer was simple. This gate was meant only for you, and now I will close it. How many gates have you stood before, telling yourself you were almost ready? How many dreams have you rehearsed without ever walking through their threshold? The ghosts of your unlived lives aren't angry, they're disappointed, because they believed in you, and they're still waiting for you to believe in yourself. But here's the cruel truth. Every day you don't choose, you're choosing not to become. And every version of you that dies from indecision becomes a weight the living you must carry. You think you're just being cautious, but what you're really doing is attending a slow funeral for the life you never started. And maybe that's why you feel tired all the time. Not because you've done too much, but because you've been holding on to too many selves for too long. It's time to let them rest. Not in shame, in ceremony. Give them names, write them letters. Thank them for what they gave you, and then bury them, because only one life gets to be yours, and it's waiting for space to grow. Letting go isn't giving up, it's giving form to one path, one voice, one story, and that's the only way the dream ever stops outrunning you. You've been protecting something sacred. You've been protecting something sacred. Guarding it like a flame you weren't allowed to touch, calling it your future, calling it your best self, your purpose. But it's time to say it out loud. You didn't protect it, you postponed it, and now it's become something else, a fantasy, a hiding place, a myth that grew too heavy to carry. That's what happens to potential when it isn't lived. It hardens, it haunts, it demands perfection and gives you nothing in return. You don't need a bigger dream. You need to break the one you've been worshipping, the one that says there's a version of you who always knew what to do, who never messed up, who chose perfectly the first time. That version doesn't exist. There is no path without risk. There is no life that lets you be everything, and the longer you wait for it, the more you become like the man who kept blueprints of a house he never built, studied every angle, refined every plan, and died cold in the dirt where the foundation should have been poured. Simone Weil once wrote, "Imaginary good is boring, real good is always new, marvelous, intoxicating. Your dream has no scars, no failures, no wrong turns. That's how you know it's not real, because real is messy, real is flawed, real bleeds, and it's only in the bleeding that anything becomes beautiful." There's a Sufi parable about a bird raised among chickens. It never knew it could fly, until one day someone lifted it to the edge of a cliff and let go. At first the bird panicked, then it plummeted, then it remembered its wings. You were never meant to stay grounded in other people's expectations. You were never meant to collect dreams. You were meant to hatch one, but that means cracking the shell. It means fire. It means mourning the blueprint. It means leaving the cage. even when the door's been open all along. So burn the plans. Tear up the perfect version of your life, because what's waiting on the other side of that fire isn't ruin. Something rough, something honest, something alive, and it will not be perfect, but it will be yours, and that's the only kind of dream that ever stops outrunning you. There is a silence after surrender, not the silence of defeat, but the kind that settles over the earth before something begins to bloom. You've spent so long running from stillness, from narrowing down, from becoming one thing, because you were told the highest truth was expansion, that freedom meant more paths, more skills, more lives waiting to be lived. But no one told you that the self, your deepest, most unshakable self, only emerges when you say no to everything that is not you. This is that moment, not the moment of clarity, the moment of courage, when you stop trying to optimize your potential and begin to spend it. Because potential unused rots. But the moment it moves, the moment it is given to something outside yourself, it becomes meaning. You don't need more time, you don't need more signs, you need roots, friction, a path narrow enough to walk without losing your mind. A seed doesn't grow in the sky, it needs dark soil, tight space, pressure. It needs to break before it can become anything, and maybe that's where you are now, breaking. Not because you're broken, but because your life can't stay unchosen any longer. Jung said that individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about integrating the pieces of yourself that you've exiled in the name of being everything. The thinker, the dreamer, the one who never finishes, the one who feels too much, the one who keeps their greatness in theory so it never has to face the world. They all come with you now. You don't have to kill off the other selves. You just have to lead them by choosing one. Nietzsche's words echo here, become who you are. But you can't become anything until you decide. There's a story about an eagle raised in a chicken yard. It pecked the ground, folded its wings, kept its head low. Until one day someone carried it to the edge of a cliff and whispered, "You're not what they told you, look." And as the wind hit its face, the eagle remembered. It didn't rise because it knew how. It rose because it couldn't stay grounded anymore. That's what becoming feels like. Not certainty, not mastery, but motion, unfolding, flight. This is the part no one sees, where you let go of infinite greatness to live one small life fully. But don't mistake small for insignificant. A narrow path walked with conviction will take you further than 1,000 unchosen roads. You were never meant to hold every possibility. You were meant to become a living embodiment of just one, and that's more than enough. Because the dream no longer outruns you when you stop asking it to carry you, and finally let it move through you, by your hands, your voice, your step. Now, you are not dreaming, you are becoming. There is a door. You've walked past it more times than you can count. Named it someday. Called it your future. Told yourself you'd open it when you were ready. But the door has never changed. Only you have. It was never locked, never sealed, never waiting for permission. Just presence. This is the truth that makes your chest ache. You weren't afraid of the door, you were afraid of what it would ask of you if you walked through it, because it would demand an end to the version of you who stayed in preparation, who built safety out of dreams, who found identity in endless potential. But that version is tired. You can feel it, not in exhaustion, in emptiness, a fatigue that comes not from doing too much, but from holding back everything you are. You don't need another plan, you need a moment. This one, because if not now, when? Kafka's parable still lingers here. The man who waited a lifetime at a gate made just for him, only to die before he stepped through it. You are not that man. You do not need more clarity. You need a yes, even if your voice shakes when you say it, even if your hands tremble on the handle. The door is open. It's always been open. There's an old Sufi parable. 30 birds set out to find their king. There's Simod. They cross mountains of fire, valleys of sorrow. Most turn back. Only 30 reach the palace. And inside they find no throne, no crown, no king, only a mirror. And in that mirror they see themselves together. transformed, worthy. The king they sought was not a ruler. It was who they became by choosing the path. So look again, this door you feared leads not to a perfect version of you, but to the reflection of what you've already survived, of what you already are. You were never chasing the dream. The dream was never ahead of you. It was never a fantasy, a reward, a distant self waiting on the horizon. It was a mirror, and it was waiting for you to be brave enough to look in. This is not the end. It's the opening, not the grand reveal, the quiet step, the shaky breath, the heartbeat that says, now. Before you go, tell me in the comments, what door are you walking through? What version of yourself are you finally choosing? Say it, write it, let it echo. Because when you name the life you're ready to live, you don't just speak it into the world, you step into it. And in that moment, the dream stops outrunning you because it's no longer ahead of you. It's in you, with you, walking, at last.